joining us is investigative columnist at the Daily Signal, Tony Kinnett, and Democratic political commentator Jonathan Harris. Gentlemen, first of all, thank you for being here. I want to first of all play off of something that Ken just said. He talked about crimes, evidence of crimes, at a level we have never seen from the son of a president in terms of this sweeping pardon that the president just issued to his son Hunter. So your reactions to this, Jonathan, I'm going to go to you first, and then Tony will hear from you.
First of all, good for President Biden. I'm glad he did it because, and I'm glad. And I was reading a lot of the reactions across social media. A lot of entertainment figures, political figures are saying good. Jasmine Crockett was saying that she's glad. It's overdue. What for a long time, what Democrats have done, I remember reading this and it's always stuck with me, is Democrats bring rule books to street fights. And that's what they keep doing. And particularly President Biden is always trying to be magnanimous. He's always trying to be above board. And meanwhile, Donald Trump is a convicted felon, 34 felonies, convicted felon, pardoned, let me make sure I have this right, pardoned Roger Stone, Charles Kushner, and Paul Manafort. And he has the audacity to talk about whether or not President Biden should be able to pardon his son over what is literally a questionable filing of a form about whether or not he was using drugs, even though he had already left an addiction therapy program. And no one, I think they said, Sonny Hostet on The View said it was 0.4% of people are ever prosecuted under this law. So good for President Biden for doing that. Donald Trump is going to pardon the terrorists that attacked this country on January 6th and committed a deadly terrorist attack. So I really don't think that a convicted felon who's been indicted in countless jurisdictions and is currently awaiting sentencing should be talking about the legal actions of anyone else. So good for President Biden.
All right, there was a lot of political rhetoric there, right there. So, Tony, I'm going to have you respond to that.
So as much as I would love to address the idea that someone just referred to a good thing that someone is fighting with street fight tactics in the justice system, I am going to mention that there are a couple of concerning things about Biden's pardon. Obviously, the crimes that Hunter committed are extremely overt. You are not allowed to lie on a federal firearms registration form on a background check. Number two, obviously there are a lot of issues with Hunter Biden's addiction over the year regarding cocaine. But mostly I think that one of the key issues here is that Biden said very clearly that no one was above the law, that everyone in this country deserved to be treated fairly by the justice system, unless it's his son, of course, in which case he pardons him because he says, well, not that he didn't do it. Actually, he's also not guilty of anything that he may have done or probably did in this 11-year span. So I'm going to pardon him of those things too, whatever they might be. And then I'm just going to go ahead and leave. And that's wrong. That's suspicious. Americans don't trust that. That's why you see a lot of failure of trust in the American institutions. And as much as, perhaps my colleague might like to smirk at the screen, the 2024 election made it very clear that Americans are fed up. I'm sorry, that is what's written specifically in the pardon. Reading is important.
Hey, yes, reading is very important, and you should give it a try, because what he says in the statement is that Hunter Biden was prosecuted because people on the other side of the aisle chose to make it a political game to go after his son because he's the son of the president of the United States. So please do take your own advice and try to read the full statement and not play politics with it. And I'm not sure that you understand metaphors very well. I didn't say that anyone should be engaging in street fight tactics. It's a metaphor. I said Democrats bring rule books to street fights, and they need to understand the game that's being played. Yes, Donald Trump is a literal criminal, and he conducts himself like a criminal. He appoints people to his cabinet that are accused sex offenders. So yeah, we're not playing the same game anymore. So good for him for pardoning his son for something his son would never have been convicted of if he wasn't Biden, if his last name wasn't Biden. And you know that. Jesus Christ.
I think I want to just point out something, because we want to make sure we stay down the line and focusing on the facts here. On January 6th, you referred to a deadly terrorist attack. We do want to just point out that the only person that was killed that day was Ashley Babbitt, and she was in fact shot by a Capitol Police officer. So let's go back
I said it was a deadly terrorist attack because it was, I think,
wow, the first terrorist attack committed without firearms? That's incredible.
But even if you only count, that is a That is a deadly terrorist attack by any definition.
Well, gentlemen,
Wow.
And it was
yeah, gentlemen, time and time again, we saw Biden. He would not pardon Hunter. He was emphatic on that, but now he is seemingly doing an about-face on that. Both guys, we came off an ugly election where Democrats are literally licking their wounds. So how does this play out in optics? Because for 4 years, we've seen this from Biden. Get the vaccine, you won't get COVID. The border is secure. I'm completely healthy and I can run for another 4 years. I'm not going to pardon my son. So why do you think right now, both gentlemen, what do you think led to this change in attitude? Tony, you first.
Well, I think over the last couple of years, you've seen Americans consistently, time and time again, be expected to accept the lies that have come down from this administration, to be told that the sky is red when in fact it's blue, and that Americans' memories turned out to be a little bit longer than was expected. And that, of course, is due to a lot of the independent journalism that we've also seen rise in the last couple of years. And that now one of the reasons that we're seeing Hunter be pardoned off is because Kamala didn't win the election. And so Hunter was always going to be used as a political prop to keep him in that position of being sentenced, and so that Donald Trump's prosecution could look legitimate. And now that, again, Trump ended up winning the election and all of that stuff didn't exactly land with the American people, well, that political prop is no longer necessary. So as for the next couple of years, I think at least as far as Elise Stefanik's seat in her special election in northern New York, you might see this kind of rhetoric come into play as Americans holding the establishment accountable, at least from the ballot box.
Jonathan, optics-wise, does this get Democrats in that trust factor of, like, I can trust, going forward, the Democratic side and the leaders that come forward?
Well, look, I think it's important to point out a few things about what you were saying. President Biden didn't step down from running for office because there was anything wrong with him. He stepped down because his party, Nancy Pelosi and reportedly former President Obama, told him that he would not win the election. And I think it was a mistake. But he didn't step down because there was something wrong with him. He stepped down because his party essentially said they thought, but that his party thought that Kamala Harris stood a better chance. As far as going forward, look, as I said, it is a joke for anyone, if anyone who is being an honest broker, to suggest that a criminal president, the first president to be charged with a crime, prosecuted for one, and convicted of one who is literally awaiting sentencing for 34 felonies, can talk about criminality and justice from the other side of the aisle without it being a complete and total joke. So I think a lot of people are happy that President Biden did this because exactly what he said in his statement, which my co-panelist clearly hasn't read in its entirety, is that what was going to happen is Donald Trump campaigned on vengeance. That's part of what his campaign was about him getting even with people who were not loyal to him. And he was going to continue to go after Hunter Biden and other people. And basically, President Biden decided to deny him to do that. And I'm glad he did it. I think most Democratic voters and elected Democrats are glad that he did it. And finally, I'll just say this real quickly. Please understand that the difference in votes between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris was 1.5%, and she had 104 days to run her campaign. I know that Donald Trump taught you guys to say he has a mandate, but go take a civics class, look up what a mandate means. He does not have that.
Let's switch
gears. Who won
gears.
The popular vote?
I'm sorry?
Who won the popular vote?
Pardon? The majority of Americans voted against Donald Trump. Please look at the numbers. Please look. Again, I need you to read more. Go look at the numbers. New York Times has a great write-up on this. He's dropped below 50%, which means, again, for the third and final time, the majority of this country did not vote for Donald Trump. You should check for these questions before you ask them.
Well, let's switch gears.
That's not what I asked.
Yeah, let's just switch gears a little bit. I think the point has been made. Let's switch gears just a little bit. I want to talk about the president-elect over the weekend making another cabinet pick. And again, a lot of this pointing to the weaponization of the justice system. He picked Kash Patel as his lead for the FBI. You see him on the screen there. He's a first-generation lawyer. He's a brilliant attorney, a prosecutor. He's played a role in really exposing the deep state corruption. We want to start with the 51 intelligence agencies who we now know were lying about the Hunter Biden laptop. They said it was Russia disinformation. We now know that has been proven to be a lie. He also played a big role in exposing the unlawful surveillance of the Trump administration, and he was part of the investigative team that exposed the Russia collusion lie that we now know was created and paid for by the Hillary Clinton campaign and the Democratic Party. So I want to go to you, Tony, first off on this pick. How important is this pick of Kash Patel, and what message is being sent from this now new incoming administration?
Well, I think Senator Josh Hawley put it best that we wouldn't actually have a lot of the information regarding the rot inside federal agencies if it wasn't for Patel. And when you have a lot of rot, you need to dig that out. And that is obviously the point of a lot of these appointments, is to restore Americans' trust in institutions that have been allowed to fester with a lot of institutional, bureaucratic, swamp-like garbage that hasn't been accountable to voters, that hasn't even been accountable to Congress, which is supposed to be the accountability measure for those agencies. So this is another one of those picks. I think that what we'll see over the next couple of months is some of this brought to light, so maybe we can begin to rebuild what has been lost over the last 4 to 16 years.
All right, and Jonathan, I would imagine that you're not too happy with this pick, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Listen, after the last couple of weeks, I'm really just proud that Donald Trump was able to find someone who isn't involved in either being accused of sex trafficking, like Matt Gaetz, who stepped down, or Peter Hegseth, who was accused of violently assaulting a woman and raping her, or the woman that he chose from the wrestling TV show that is involved in a child sex lawsuit. Not Tulsi Gabbard, who almost everyone agrees is compromised and who Russia television referred to as a Russian asset. I guess, we've set the bar fairly low. So, I mean, as I understand it, this guy's not accused of being a sex offender. And since Donald Trump was found to have raped a woman by a New York jury and a judge, it's nice that he at least broke that cycle. Oh, and it's not Dr. Oz, who everybody pretty universally agrees is a bit of a quack. So, I mean, with the bar set as low as Donald Trump has set it, I guess this is something to celebrate, maybe. I don't know. It's just the vengeance campaign, and he's only hiring people. I will say he's just hiring people who will bend the knee and bow to him. There's nobody that he's hiring that will challenge him or bring him different kinds of thoughts. It's just everyone that will be loyal to him and bend the knee to him. So this is just another one.
Yeah, well, we do want to stay accurate. We do want to stay towards the fact. We know Andrew Cuomo also was convicted, or actually was accused of sexual misconduct. We also know there was no conviction on rape by the former president, who is now the president-elect, and no charges were ever brought against Matt Gaetz. We just want to make sure we're sticking to the facts and having a fair conversation.
I was referring to what
and Jonathan
the
Harris,
New York judge and jury found.
Okay. Tony and Jonathan, we appreciate your time. We want to thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks, Joe Fanchen.
We'd love to have you guys back next time. Thanks.
Sure thing. Thank you.